I believe, is our biggest group of parents that we've ever had for one of our safety hearings, which is on some level, I don't know how to interpret it. I think good that a lot of years we might only see like 2 or 3 parents. I think if we have a whole swarm of parents, then you start wondering, it's like, okay, why is everybody so worried? And then when you go look at just news events, things are happening in the news all the time. So I just want to spend some time going over just a quick overview on what we do as a school district when it comes to safety, and really focus the bulk of our time here tonight to answer questions you might have, because I just want to make sure that if you're here, you might have questions, and I want to make sure that we're able to answer those as best as we can before we leave. So my name is Scott Parker. I'm the school superintendent. I also have here with me is our business manager Michael McMillan, Joy Jordan, who's our community engagement coordinator, and we have Melissa McGuire, our director of student services. And I'll let our 2 police chiefs introduce themselves and the officers that are here with them as well.
Good evening, everyone. Kevin Constantine, Howard Police Chief. I want to echo what Scott said. This is absolutely the biggest turnout we had, which is says something for all of you who were here. As a parent who now kids out of the school, safety has always been a top priority of mine with kids in here in the past, and in the school district. Longtime former school resource officer for many, many years. So this is the top of my priority list when it comes to safety. And Scott's right. You watch the news these days, and it's not just schools. It's churches, it's businesses, it's gathering places. It's now country club in New Hampshire. So for us, as a department, I know Chief Anderson will probably say the same thing. It's absolute top priority for us. And we're happy to be here tonight and answer any questions that you all may have. With me tonight, standing up in the back there, is Lieutenant Aram Goshgarian. Lieutenant Goshgarian is in charge of our school resource officer program. Officer Clark and Fritz unfortunately could not be here tonight, but in Harwich, you all probably know Fritz more than Officer Clark, but they're stationed here at the high school. They spend time at the elementary school. We also have a post-certified school resource officer who is not full-time in the schools but can cover, Officer Connery, who primarily covers our charter school out in East Harwich and Harwich Elementary School, as well as he filled in a day that Tommy was off in here last week. So we're happy to have him for that coverage as well. And then in the back too is Officer John Larrabee. He's our Cape Cod Tech School Resource Officer. So, we have 2 full-time SROs, and it's not common that we have 2 very large high schools in a town too. So we're well versed in the SRO field, and just glad they could be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. My name is Mike Anderson, and I'm the Police Chief of Chatham. And before I go any further, let me introduce my handsome officer in the back, Charlie Chapralis. He's our full-time school resource officer, and his primary assignment is the middle school. Also on my roster, I have 3 other full certified backup school resource officers who can cover in Charlie's absence, or the elementary school, or the high school if needed. I share the same thoughts as Kevin, but I'll go a little bit deeper. Kevin and I have been working together in Harwich and Chatham for a long time. We know each other very well. Unlike other maybe town police departments and fire departments or other town police departments, there's no rivalry. There's no, we're better than you, or that's the way they do it. Really, since the unification and the regionalization of this high school and the school district, we've come together, and it's almost like police department west and east. Other than really the different names on our patches. We know each other, we work with each other, we train. We train, and we practice. We're on regional crisis teams, local crisis teams, and this is where I will brag. We train a lot more than most police departments on Cape Cod, not even close. Some police departments think about philosophies or operations or protocols. We're already years past that. Active drills, active implementations. Most of our drills that we do are reviews of drills we've already done, as opposed to other police departments or public safety departments where, yeah, we need to get to that. We need to get to that someday. Other than that, I'll just say that you guys are in good hands. Your kids are in good hands. I am not just a police chief. I'm a parent of one child that just graduated last year from the high school, and I've got a daughter who is a sophomore here, and I don't bat an eyelash when she's here in somebody's care other than my own. They're in good hands, as are your kids. So with that, thank you for having us. Thanks for coming out tonight. Please tell the people that you know that didn't come, they should have came or come next year, because it's important. So we'll save the questions till the end. It's a pleasure being here to meet you all. Thank you.
And we have these, we have these drills, or we have these conversations each year because in the month of October, we start from every building level going into sort of safety drills with your children. We, by law in Massachusetts, in the first week of school, you're required to have a fire drill. In our country, over the last century, very few individuals have lost their lives in a school setting in a fire. And, so the drills that we'll start going into in October are drills for the worst case. And we understand what that worst case is from what we've seen in the news. So, so we start every year in every building doing the drills. We'll do the drills with our staff, we'll do the drills with our students. When it comes to the drills that we'll be going into for worst case scenarios, I give our public safety, both police and fire, a lot of credit. We work together as schools with public safety and have these conversations with kids at very age-appropriate levels. So when it comes to our public safety officers, will be going into each elementary classroom and we'll be talking with kids about what evacuation looks like from a elementary age mindset. By the time the kids get to middle school, they understand why we're having the drills. They've seen it sadly in the media. They understand why we're going there. And then as the kids get older into high school, we're much more explicit about the drills and everything. But again, it's just trying to make sure we're sensitive to those. But safety is that top priority. We do as a district have a crisis team. So our crisis team plans, as Chief Anderson mentioned, we are way ahead of the curve when it comes to planning, and our public safety partners are way ahead of the curve in terms of preparing, just in terms of their own drills. We held drills here in the past year where we had police and fire. Pretty much every officer and every firefighter that they have in each of the two departments were here on a weekend with our staff, with some student volunteers, and we're doing drills on what it would look like if we had to have police come in, we needed to have emergency, we needed to have paramedics coming in, getting individuals out of the building. But again, that's sort of like the level of planning that's going on. We also have we also have some detailed planning in terms of how do we go reunify our students and so that we're getting them back to you and accounting for all of that. So we do all of that planning. We also have all of our staff have on their phones, there's an app. It's called Crisis Go. And I think one thing that makes us different from a lot of school districts is, I would say in many places, a staff member, if they feel, okay, something really bad's about to happen or is happening, they have to call the main office. The main office is then, calling police or fire. Our staff members from their phone can just literally hit a button, and every phone in that building will go off. The same call goes to police and fire, and we can start internally communicating with each other over that Crisis Go app. So we practice when we have fire drills, we practice when we have our other drills, just accounting for your students and communicating, is everybody safe? So you'll get, the alert will go out, and people will start punching into the phones. The principal will punch in, is everybody okay? And they'll start, you'll see this chain of texts coming back in through that app, where everybody's accounting. Is anyone missing? But again, it's things that we put in place just to make sure that we're able to go and communicate through these things. In terms of just our buildings themselves, as you know, if you go to any of our buildings, the doors from the outside are locked after the kids come in the morning. There's cameras at each door, so you have to push the button. They see you. The front office staff isn't just going to let you in unless they recognize who you are, that you have business at the school. Our schools require that our visitors, if you're going to be walking through the hallways, will have some sort of badge or identification that they're visitors. We've got two great SROs that are on, both Tom Clark here at the high school and Charlie over at the middle school. They're there and present in the hallways, and they are really, for the kids, they're seen as another one of the adults that they can go to if they have problems. Period. So they are, they're very much a part of that fabric of safety that we have. In terms of the buildings, all of our buildings are fully alarmed. The alarms are checked every year, and as I said, we drill annually, both for fire and for the worst case scenarios. And I've talked about the SROs in both of the buildings. In terms of our evacuation plans, each of the classrooms have a emergency manual in it that has, okay, here's how you're going to evacuate out. We practice that. We also go and have like little curveballs during many of the drills where there might be someone in the fire department, they'll be holding a sign saying danger, this hallway's blocked, because we need to go and teach, our staff, but we also need to teach our kids, like, be flexible in your thinking. There's not just one way out of any building. What's the other direction that you need to take? So we also have, as part of our planning, we just have to take into consideration weather. I can remember long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was a classroom teacher, Lexington High School, and there was a bomb threat. And the building evacuated into a monsoon. And at least 32 years ago, there was not a plan on what to do if you have to dump a building and there's a monsoon. and I remember, it's like after a while, I was drenched to the bone. I looked like I had been swimming, everyone else. And, finally people were like, okay, well, maybe we should just like get in cars. You can imagine like every car in the parking lot had kids like climbing and just soaked. I'm pretty sure that there was, one of the kids that was in my car had like something about their clothes had run off, and like there's like a stain that was never going to come out of one of the seats. But I think the nice thing is, for me, 30-some years ago, it's sort of like, okay, it's New England. We need to be prepared for rain. We need to be prepared for snow. We've got that. We've got that in our plans. So we have in those plans. It's like, okay, what do we need to do if we need to go and get the kids all out of here and under under shelter, so involving the buses and everything is part of that. Here's really where the angst will be for some, over tonight, and we'll talk about this, but also these are the drills that we're going to start working with your children on in October. If you were to go online and just Google Run, Hide, Fight, one of the first things that would pop up is the FBI has a whole campaign now on Run, Hide, Fight. That this is sort of how they're suggesting that anybody should be preparing for in terms of what do you need to do. So for us, the run, what we try to train our staff for and what we train our students for is, if there's a really bad situation, move away, get yourself out of harm's way. That's the run. And the hide piece is, if for whatever reason you can't go get yourself away from a bad situation, then find some way to hide or to safely shelter in place. And then the last, and if only you had to, situation is if you're in that sheltered location and you're approached and the danger is upon you, then do what you need to do to go, and fight back or to take action. We do not go in these drills and tell kids it's like, okay, judo chop this or that. It's really talking about common sense. You could imagine if you're at the high school and you're having this conversation and you're in a library, there are lots of things all around us that one could throw if they needed to in a fight situation. And I appreciated a couple of years ago, I went to the Run, Hide, Fight presentation at the middle school. And the SRO at the middle school was talking to the kids about, what I'm doing is this is sort of like a good life skill lesson. And at the time I was kind of thinking about that. It's like, that's a sad testament for our society, but it has become this life skill lesson. And even today, I was getting up this morning to come here, and we're watching the news of a shooting yesterday, that in Michigan that took several lives at a church, and the day before at a restaurant, 3 lives in North Carolina. Again, they weren't schools, but this is, and it was interesting if you do go, Google Run, Hide, Fight on the FBI website. They actually have parallel videos. There's a video of a scenario that's happening in a bar people are at, and there's a video of something that's happening in a school setting. And again, it's sort of emphasizing that this is, these are strategies and a way to think about things in just school setting and also outside of schools. Reunification is the most important thing for at least parents to think about. Okay, if there's a bomb threat, fire, smoke situation, whatever, if we have to go and shut school down for the day at that building, we will be communicating out to you on what we're doing and where to reunify with your kids. My request for all of you is don't immediately, when you hear about this, because social media is fast, and you can imagine that bomb threat, all of a sudden, boom, it shows up, and social media is going, and parents are like zooming to the building, but we may have already called the buses, and your kids may actually be heading to an alternative location. So we will be communicating out where that reunification is. Again, that's part of the safety plans, is that we have places that we want to make sure that we can get everybody under a roof, where it's heated, where there's bathrooms, and get them back with you and safely back to you. But it's going to take a lot of cooperation on your part. We also have to keep in mind that we do live in small towns, and if everybody were to go and converge in one location. At the same time, it potentially means that public safety can't get to that location in a good amount of time, or that the buses that I'm trying to use to go and get your children back to you aren't able to get to the kids. So looking for those follow-up emails. So, we'll usually communicate out saying, here's the situation. We'll be sending a subsequent email about reunification. It just sort of look for those. So you will get more information from us. Again, knock on wood, we don't have to utilize this, but we have, in my 13 years that I've been here, there's been twice that we've had bomb threats that were not credible, but had to go have parents come and get their children much earlier than we were planning. And again, in those cases, it wasn't picking them up at the school. I've also already mentioned the Crisis Go app, but all of our staff have that on their phones. The last little thing, and this is just really important, just for anything, is that if you can remember this for yourselves and really communicate this to your children. This whole concept of see something, say something. Like, if you're because oftentimes when it comes to tragedies that happen in schools, in hindsight, people say, "Oh, we should have known. Someone should have known." And you hear about this. And I think the more that we can go and have our children understand, it's okay to go tell a trusted adult and tell somebody that can make the situation better, so it doesn't get to that crisis situation. As I said, it's short. My focus tonight is not on me sort of giving a big safety presentation, but to take the time to listen to what your concerns are and answer your questions. So I'll stop there and open the floor, and the chiefs and...
Actually, I have one quick thing, if
Sure.
you don't mind. On that last slide, we teach the kids this. 5 mass shootings in the last 24 hours in this country. That's what we were thinking about, that number. In almost every occasion, you see now in the news when there's something at a school or a restaurant, people are coming forward, friends of these people. I knew something was strange. Something had changed. They're leaving us little breadcrumbs that we're just not picking up. So we teach the kids to please come forward, tell an adult, tell the school resource officer. A few years ago now, a kid came to SRO Clark because one of their classmates made some very concerning statements, and we ended up prosecuting the young man because they were so, alarming at the time. So the kids trust the SROs to bring this stuff to them. And I encourage you, if you see these kids, if they tell you something, they saw this, tell somebody, call the police. We've had incidents, and there's been other districts where it's been a nothing. The kid made the statement, oops, we don't treat them as oopses. I'm not saying the SWAT team is going to kick the door down to the parents' house. We go do home visits. We check to see if the parents have guns, that they have access to these guns. It's important stuff. And we talk about gun control and background checks and mental health. This, in my opinion, it's always looking back at what has happened. But when you see these events happening and you hear what people are saying after the fact, some of these I think could have been prevented. So this is like a huge part. It's a big part, and the kids have been great with it. So we just encourage you, if they say something to you, I don't care who it is, just bring it forward. Call your local police wherever you live, and let us vet it. Let us vet it. It makes a big difference. So that's just my 2 cents.
And I think to sort of tie into that, this isn't just about sort of school shooting type things. This could be your son or daughter talks to you about, hey, I've got a friend who's troubled, who's who we don't want to have a child hurt themselves or hurt others. So again, it's that. A lot of times I think the acronym that I always sort of raise with kids is it's ACT, So acknowledge that something's not right. Care enough to do something about it and talk to somebody who can go and step in and help.
I have a question. Well, as I walked in today, the doors being wide open for like this meeting.
We thought that too.
Is that like, what's the policy for after hours for events?
Good question.
Things like this?
Yes, so after hours, if we know we have a school function, there's like a little card reader by the doors here at the high school. Same thing happens in the other buildings, but there'll be a green light on if there's going to be a play. And sometimes there's only like the back doors are open and the doors halfway up the hallway will be locked. But because it's a community event tonight here, the doors are open front and back. The same thing would happen when there's a school committee meeting, or if there's a basketball game, you'll find that the back end of the building's open to let people into the gymnasium. But generally it's, things are locked unless we know there's a community event outside of hours.
So there's no one to like monitor that though? Like people are just coming and going and no one's really out there?
Nobody's out in the building. All the buildings have cameras on all the time, but there's not anybody out in the hallway right now.
So in other words, if someone's stuck behind tonight, after we think everyone leaves, there's cameras, so if someone wanted to stay overnight.
Yes, so there are cameras, and the custodians are the last ones to lock up all the building, and then once the building is locked up, somebody internally, if you somehow manage to avoid the custodian, you potentially would trip another alarm. I have nightmares that I end up accidentally setting off the alarm when I say I'm too late in my office.
So I have a question. With all the stuff that's been going on with the game and everything else at school, what happens, what kind of training are you guys doing for active shooters? Like, I know you have one officer on, but he could be way down the hall down there, and someone comes in with an AR and starts shooting up. What are you guys doing to protect our kids from that?
So,
I mean, do you guys carry ARs to school? I mean, I know you guys are carrying pistols, but the pistol's not going to bump too much when the guy's shooting an AR.
yeah.
You
So
know, that's my biggest fear.
I'll leave it.
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I'll leave it. No, I
understand about bomb threats and all that stuff and
Yeah.
chemical spills, fires. What about a kid get a hold of an AR?
Yeah.
Stop blasting windows.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, chiefs, but I believe all of the cruisers have ARs available in them. All the
Right,
cruisers.
but if someone starts shooting the windows out of here right now, we're all saying, he's not gonna be able to run to his cruiser to get an AR.
So, I do believe that there's access to tactical gear that's available in anybody that's going to
Is it in the
respond.
school? No, I just, to me, I mean, I'm a gun owner, I know all about guns, but I could come in here and just start shooting and the resource officers would be down, 100 feet away. So what happens, what are you guys trained to do for that? I understand you can train for fires, you can train for smoke, you can train for chemical spill. But how do you train for an active shooter coming in here?
So
And I know you only do so much too.
well, we're very, Chief Anderson. feel
I'll let
free
you
to-
go first.
I mean, I just,
All I can say
this
is-
is, I never thought I would have to worry about this when my kids come to school, and I think about it every
You're not,
day.
you're not the only one worrying about it.
You know?
We worry about the same thing without disclosing any sensitive interoperational security
Well, those are big words.
matters that we have in place.
Kind of means you're not getting the full answer.
So let's just, I'm sorry, I was gonna let you go first, but
Coming out of my mouth.
let's just say that happened, okay? There are only so many things that you can defend for and against and prepare for, other than create the next school to be a fortress,
Right. No, I get it.
to be built like a prison, okay? All this glass, all this open space, tactically terrible.
I know.
However, We know that most active shooters or persons who are intent on harming somebody are coming with long guns. Every single police officer that's coming here in response to that will be bringing theirs. As to what the school resource officers have, not immediate, but access to, they're in good shape.
Okay.
As well as offensive, there are personal protective and defensive weapons without giving too much away.
Right. Perfect.
Is in possession, and they've been trained. Does that answer your question?
More than answers my
And I,
question.
and I will,
Yeah.
I will also share just perspective as somebody that's been on this side of public, of dealing with sort of public safety in schools, as long as these guys have been wearing their uniforms, so my administrative experience started the year of Columbine. And there was a very different mentality back then. And, I would say collectively, we, being, schools and public safety, and definitely we at Monomoy have tried to stay up on, the latest in what to do. So, so even if I go back before I came here, so I've been here 13 years. Go back about 15 years, the mentality was, because of the long guns, wait for 4 officers to show up, enter the school in diamond formation, and address the situation. Now, waiting for 4 officers to show up,
Yeah.
like, that's,
Doesn't happen.
that,
Back then, it was wait for the SWAT team,
Right.
right? It takes an hour to get a SWAT team.
yeah.
Yeah.
So now, and this is not giving away anything, this is out there, right? Now, if the SRO hears something, they are going to address something. We're coming, right? But they're not waiting. They're not waiting. They're going to the threat. They're dealing with the threat. And then we're coming in. And where all of our schools are, we're going to be here quick. I mean, it's a small town, right?
You know how fast
Yep.
someone can
Yep.
shoot 30 rounds.
Yeah.
But
And it's also quite impressive how quickly they come. Like, I can remember, was it 2 years ago, John, that somebody accidentally tripped the alarm? And I remember I was driving to the high school here, and I was by the intersection, up on, as I just got off the highway at the Harwich exit. And it seemed like every police car that Harwich had and everyone that was coming from Chatham, it was like they were there in a heartbeat. And, again, and I mean, it's a valid point, but they're small towns. Yeah. They're small towns, and when the call goes out, everybody from, there's a lot of mutual aid, not just Chatham and Harwich, but the aid will be coming from everywhere.
I think that was something that you guys mentioned last year, actually, was that there was like mutual aid amongst multiple towns in this vicinity. So like it wasn't just the Harwich and who else is involved in that mutual
Everybody.
aid? The whole Cape?
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll be coming in, which is great. But we also plan for other departments to self-deploy, which is what we don't want. What we practice is, for example, if I'm a Dennis police officer and I hear it going off at the Monomoy school, I'm coming. Even though I'm in Dennis, or if I'm a state trooper up on the highway,
Right.
I'm going to the high school. However, if that trooper self-deploys and the police officers that are here who are trained to handle and know each other and operate together, we put plans in place to have staging areas for medical, law enforcement. So the fact that help's coming, if officers self-deploy or firefighters self-deploy, sometimes that causes more harm than good. Once you get over the first 4, 5, 3, 7, 10 minutes of chaos, everything else we have to really control how we enter and exit. But rest assured, we've had several false alarms where law enforcement from multiple towns away have either shown up or had to be called off because they were on the way. And we would do the same if we heard our neighbors in another
Right.
community.
And I think one of the things I do remember specifically was that it wasn't necessarily for them to come to the buildings, it was for them to cover the police station
That
while
too.
the people that were trained came to the buildings.
Yeah, and she makes a great point. I use the same example of like, well, Chatham has a 4th of July parade. Wow, that's great. All the police officers work the 4th of July parade. That's great. Well, it's not great because we still have other police work that happens during the parade. And I don't have any officers to respond to the traffic accidents, the domestic violences, the larcenies. So if we are tied up, God forbid, this is an active crime scene, we're here. We will need our brothers and sisters to come in and perform our patrol duties because the other stuff that happens in Harwich and Chatham doesn't stop because something else happens.
And when it comes to our reunification planning, we've already been working with agencies beyond Harwich and Chatham because we might need to go and put the kids on a bus to have them safely under a roof somewhere and work with another town's police and fire to help get your children back to you. Again,
Say
just
put a roof under if they're outside, they're gonna be running if this is shooting.
So I want to bring your question up as far as like our
Like,
response.
they're gonna run and hide, they're not gonna be looking for a roof, whether it's a foot of snow or it's raining buckets.
Well, this is like for bomb threats or something more
Right,
control, right? But I want to bring up, thanks to Joy, she reminded me as far as, like, our response is our response, which we've got down, but we train your children about the run, hide, fight, because if that goes well and everybody can get out of the school, or everybody can learn how to hide appropriately because they're too close to a threat, that makes our job a lot easier, right? And I think helps answer some of the questions you have as far as if everybody works in this together collectively, it's huge, huge. So, thanks, Joy. But you're right, and we've had this at the tech school, we had an alarm go off, and the kids did it was a false alarm, but it was a intruder alarm. They left. We had kids on the highway, now they're high school kids, great, who cares, right? But we had kids hopping the fence, going on the highway, calling for rides, we had them in the woods. They did exactly what Officer Larrabee trained them to do. So if there was a real thing, that school probably would have been dumped out and empty, which is great. And then, I mean, with high school kids, and again, age appropriateness, right? The smaller kids are gonna be controlled more. Then the high school kids are just we gotta prevent them from getting in their cars, right? So it's age appropriate and stuff. But especially with high school kids, if they go off on their own, we didn't lose anybody. We found them. They came to school the next day, right? So it all works out.
There were two things too that helped me personally, as I'm assuming you have a kindergartner.
No, we have 2 high schools.
Oh, you have high school, okay.
Yeah.
I talked to my teacher. I talked to my kid's teacher and asked her directly what her plan was for evacuation because I needed to know, first of all, honestly, I wanted to vibe and feel that she was actually going to do something to, protect my child when I'm not around. But I know that brought me a lot of comfort talking to her and hearing her plan that I know has been discussed with them as well. Because that's one of my fears too, is someone's going to come with a high capacity or something and it's going to happen so fast. That's one of my biggest fears too.
But there's not much you can do about it.
There's,
Some of these times, this is the way it goes. It's the one that drives.
but
We live it today.
I do think that listening to you guys for the last couple of years talk about this, that it's helped. I do think that they're prepared. I do think that you guys have done a lot more, especially reading things regarding this Falmouth kid that's, whatever's going on with that situation, it sounds like there isn't very much communication and there's not discussion or knowledge to the parents of what's going on. And I really don't know 100%, and I'm not involved in that, but I feel like I could ask questions to any of the police officers and ask questions to my school and ask questions to the teacher, and I feel like I can get some sort of response that's regarding that. And when you say age appropriate, what are you teaching the kindergartners, first grade, second grade right now about, you're not gonna say to them, oh, there's a shooter in the school, we need to get you safe. What are you using right now as the,
We use like a scary animal gets in the building,
right,
a big dog, or that's by age appropriate. That's what we don't, obviously.
But
Right.
they do hear the same drill, like it is run, hide, fight. Like we're still teaching them, and for them, we're really teaching them like listen to your teacher.
yeah,
Like, let your teacher make a decision, and you're gonna do whatever she says, just like a fire drill. It's just gonna be a little different. You might move a little faster. She might tell you to do something else.
Any other questions?
This is an aside, but I was surprised. I go to church in Chatham, and literally 10 minutes after the service has started, they lock the doors. And one fellow sits by he sits there in case somebody's late, but that's how serious the church is taking all along while the service is going on.
Ma'am, I don't want you to give away your place of worship. It's none of my business. But what address is it? Because we've done these similar presentations to almost every one of our places of worship in Chatham.
I don't know the address. It's the church with the pumpkins.
Okay, so your church, I've met with them, or we've met with them many times, and it's almost the same exact presentation, dealing unfortunately with the same exact thing. And your church basically did a remodeling on the past couple of years, and they actually asked us to sit on the building design committee, and they actually listened to us. It was really great. And some of their building designs were made because of some suggestions that we had. Now look, I will say this. Most places of worship now, to have insurance, they need some type of presentation or training, and we're glad to provide it. But yours was one of the first, and I know your pastor and his crew, they are super squared away. It's actually a model. They have the evacuation plans on the back of every pew. They do lock the doors. They have monitors. And one of the things that they really do have, not aggressive, but they're greeters. They're greeters at the door. They all have name tags. They're very easily identifiable, just like the teachers out in the back parking lot. They see the same things every day, but they also say, hey, Jimmy, how are you doing today? Maybe they see Jimmy being a little off. Or a greeter at a church, they might see someone who they don't recognize or someone who might be new. And just the fact that they take the time to, hey, how are you? Welcome to this church. You seem new. That a little bit of stop, and the brain starts to think, if that person did have an intention of doing something harmful, even something as simple as that can maybe deter them and say, you know what, not today. But I applaud your place of worship. They do a great job.
They trained the greeters. They said, if you don't really know if the guy looks a little sketchy, you're supposed to have a little conversation.
Yeah, and it's the same thing at the elementary schools, the middle schools. The teachers are always out there greeting the buses, greeting the kids. The SROs are always out there greeting the kids. And if I hate to use the word stranger danger, but the police officers who know their school community know the strangers, or observe the strangers, or act upon something that they might feel is suspicious that you frankly might not notice or think is suspicious. You do a great job.
Any other questions?
I have a quick one, sorry. Buses. If there was an issue, I guess, on my daughter's bus this week, where it's a suspicious activity, does that get communicated to the parents, or is it all the rumors with, it might be a side, but I mean, I just didn't know what bus security, if there are issues.
So the buses have cameras on them as well. So if a bus driver knows about it, or if the bus driver somehow didn't know about something but kids reported it, we have the ability to go back to the bus company, see the recording, and we'll do this.
This was more suspicious activity that the bus driver noticed and kids found out or they were told about it. So does that ever get,
I think if the bus driver were to report it to us, so we have in my office, Faith Rushnick, who you've probably gotten emails from regarding transportation. The bus drivers would contact Faith, and Faith would sort of communicate out to my office and the principal if it was a school-related.
I didn't know what the transparency was.
Yeah.
So I just wanted, Leanne Smith, the McKepp Fire Department arrived. So Leanne and Aram are our go-to people for the school training in the classrooms with the SROs, with our administration, on our crisis team, and do a phenomenal job. So just want to thank Leanne for coming tonight. And I just want to close with what Chief Anderson said is with Leanne here, like this is testament to our team, and I'm grateful that we have the regional system, whether it be the tech with other towns or just Monomoy with Harwich and Chatham. We just have more wealth of knowledge and more personnel to think about these things, to train on these things, and Chief Anderson says it perfectly. We can't divulge everything tonight to you for specific reasonings, but just know that this is absolute top priority of ours, and has been since around 13 years ago when things started to shift in the way of thinking. And I'll tell you, in 1991, at Franklin Middle School, where I grew up in Massachusetts, there was a school shooting in the classroom right next to me. With a student, took the class hostage, shot a rifle through the window. We sat in that classroom for a good half hour and just carried on with our day until we were evacuated by the police. They didn't, they handled it, but there was no planning, there was nothing. So when I tell you this means a lot to me, this means a lot to me. And can't thank Chatham enough for everything I do and for they do with us, and especially the school district. And I'm very lucky to have the school district we have, and the administrators and all the staff. Can't ask for a better team, so I hope that, makes you all feel good.
And what you'll get from us is, should something bad happen in any of our buildings, the principals will notify me, or for that matter, the Crisis Go app is going to be buzzing in my pocket, and I'm immediately sort of apprised of the situation. I have my key people that I call right away, and I call Melissa and let her know this is here's what your role is going to be, all laid out. Michael knows what his role is going to be. The assistant superintendent, Dr. Millen, she knows what she's going to do. So, and Joy and I'm like, okay, I'm en route to Harwich Elementary School or the middle school or wherever, and Joy's going to join me there, and we're going to start pumping out information to you as soon as we possibly can. And it's going to be just the state of the situation. Hopefully what we're saying is everybody's okay, and here's how we might need to get your children back to you. So it's like, just look for those emails and look for those follow-up emails on sort of next steps for parents. But you'll get that, like, on our end. I think we just pride ourselves on how fast we'll get the information out. And it's lessons learned the hard way over time that, how important communication is when it comes to crisis situations. So we try to be, pumping out information as fast as we possibly can to you.
And a really minor note in keeping with that is just make sure that Aspen has your most correct email address, cell phone number, because that's where the data is going to come from for us to send out messages to you. So if you feel like you haven't been getting emails or messages on, everyday matters from the school, just call the front office or log into Aspen and make sure your accurate information is in there, because that's how we're going to get in touch.
So I'll stop there. If you have questions that you didn't want to ask in front of everybody, I'll stay as long as I need to go and answer each of your questions. And you're also more than welcome to email me at any time at scarpenter@monomoy.edu, and I'd be happy to get back to you with information. Well, thank you for coming.